The unexpected walk-in. The desert was silent except for the sound of dry wind. A lone human walked slowly, his boots sinking into the red sand. His name was Daniel, a simple traveler, tired and hungry. Looking for water, he had no map, no guide, only hope that the strange lights on the horizon might lead him to shelter. The closer he walked, the louder the noise became. Drums, deep and heavy, echoed across the dunes. Strange voices chanted in a language he could not understand. The human stopped, blinking against the bright glow of fire that rose from behind tall stone walls. Curiosity pulled him forward. His legs shook from exhaustion, but his heart pushed him to keep moving. He thought, maybe they are friendly, maybe they have food. But when he stepped through the wide stone gates, the entire world around him changed. Thousands of alien eyes turned toward him. Creatures of different shapes and sizes filled a huge arena. Some had horns, some had scales, some had glowing marks across their skin, and in the center of the arena stood a ring of fire. Glowing bright against the night, Daniel froze. He did not understand. The aliens stared at him in silence, then roared with laughter. One shouted in a deep voice, "A human dares to enter the ritual of blood and fire." Daniel's mouth went dry. He had no idea what they meant. The crowd cheered, banging weapons against the stone. The drums grew louder, the chants faster, and before he knew it, alien guards pushed him forward into the circle. Daniel tried to speak. "Wait, I don't understand." But no one listened. The leader of the aliens raised a long staff and spoke in a commanding voice. "The ritual begins. The winner shall claim the right of the tribe, the right of all females." Daniel's heart raced. He finally understood a little. This was no festival. This was not a celebration, it was a fight. A deadly trial where warriors battled to the death for control of the tribe. And now, by mistake, he was one of them. The first challenger stepped forward. He was a tall alien with armor made of bones and eyes burning like fire. The crowd screamed his name, stamping their feet against the ground. Daniel stumbled back, his hand shaking. He had no weapon, no shield, no plan. The alien lunged at him with a glowing spear. Daniel dropped to the ground in fear. Rolling away just in time, the spear struck the sand. Sending sparks into the air, the crowd gasped, then roared louder than before. To them it looked like skill, but to Daniel it was pure accident. The challenger growled, circling him like a predator. Daniel grabbed a handful of sand without thinking. When the alien attacked again, Daniel threw the sand into his eyes. The alien roared in pain, stumbling blindly. The crowd exploded in shock, some cheering, others shouting in anger. Daniel stood frozen, breathing hard. He had no idea what he had done, but the alien fell to his knees. Defeated for the first round, the drums pounded faster. The chants turned into wild screams. The humans in ancient legends had never been seen in such a place. Yet here was one standing in the sacred fire circle. Daniel whispered to himself, "I don't belong here. I need to get out." But deep inside, a strange feeling began to rise. Fear mixed with something else. A spark of courage he did not know he had. The alien leader slammed his staff again. The human survives the first strike, but the ritual is not finished. The fight continues until only one remains. Daniel looked around. He saw dozens of warriors sharpening blades, preparing to fight him next. He felt the weight of thousands of eyes watching his every move. The females in the stands looked down with curiosity, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Some whispered, "Could this human be chosen by the stars?" Daniel's chest tightened. He had come only searching for water, but now he was inside an alien ritual where death was the only outcome. The crowd roared again as the next warrior stepped into the fire circle. Daniel clenched his fists, his legs trembling. He whispered under his breath, "I don't want to fight, but maybe I have no choice." The second challenger raised his blade. The drums thundered like a storm. The fire burned higher, and Daniel, the lone human, stood at the center of destiny without even knowing it. The first clash, the arena shook with the sound of drums. The flames around the circle rose higher, throwing shadows across the alien faces. Daniel stood in the center, his breath quick, his hands empty, his heart pounding. He had survived the first strike only by luck, but luck did not last forever. The crowd shouted in 100 voices, some chanting for his death, some laughing at the idea of a human still alive. But among the noise, a strange silence lived inside Daniel's chest. Fear pulled him down. Yet something inside whispered, "You must stand." From the far side of the circle, the second challenger stepped forward. He was taller than the first, his skin covered with sharp ridges. In his hand he carried two curved blades, glowing faint blue in the firelight. His eyes locked on Daniel with hunger. As if he had already claimed victory, the crowd began to chant his name, Vorak! 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 Each shout made the ground tremble. Daniel felt small, weak, and lost. He whispered, I don't belong here. I can't fight this. But the guards blocked the exits. There was no way out. The staff of the alien leader slammed into the ground once more. Begin the second clash. Vorak rushed forward, moving faster than Daniel's eyes could follow. The curved blade slashed through the air. Missing Daniel's face by an inch, he stumbled backward, falling onto the hot sand, his skin burning. The crowd laughed wildly, enjoying the helpless human. But in that fall, Daniel's hand touched something sharp, a broken piece of stone, part of a shattered weapon left on the ground. His fingers closed around it without thinking. When Vorak lunged again, Daniel swung the stone in blind panic. The sound echoed across the arena. The stone smashed against Vorak's jaw. The warrior staggered, his blades cutting only air. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Daniel stood up, holding the broken stone, his hand shaking but his eyes wide with shock. I hit him, he whispered, as if even he did not believe it. Vorak roared, blood running from his mouth. Anger burned in his eyes, brighter than fire. He attacked again, faster, harder. Daniel barely dodged, the blades cutting his sleeve, leaving a line of blood on his arm. Pain seared through him, but it lit a strange fire inside. His body moved with desperate energy. Each time Vorak struck, Daniel stepped back or rolled aside. It looked like skill, like training. But it was nothing more than a man fighting to live one more second. The crowd could not see the fear in his chest. They only saw a human standing against a warrior of great power. Each survival looked like defiance, each breath looked like courage. Whispers grew in the stands. Maybe he is chosen. Maybe the human carries hidden strength. Daniel felt his legs weaken, his chest heavy. He could not last much longer, but then something unexpected happened. As Vorak leapt at him with both blades raised high, Daniel tripped backward on the uneven sand. He fell flat and Vorak's attack missed. The warrior landed hard, his blade sticking deep into the stone floor. In that single second, Daniel saw a chance. He picked up the stone shard and struck with all the force left in him. The shard cut across Vorak's throat. The warrior froze, eyes wide. Before collapsing into the sand, silence fell. The arena stopped breathing. Every alien eye was locked on the human who had once again survived. Daniel sat trembling, his arm bleeding, his body covered in dust and sweat. He whispered, I didn't mean to. I didn't. The leader's staff struck the ground again. The human has defeated Vorak. The ritual continues. The crowd erupted in madness. Some cheered, raising weapons to the sky. Others shouted in fury, calling the fight unfair. But the females in the stands leaned forward, their glowing eyes fixed only on Daniel. They whispered to each other, voices soft but filled with awe. A human bleeds yet does not fall. Perhaps he is meant to rule. Daniel looked around, his head spinning. He did not understand the whispers, but he felt their weight for the first time. He realized this was no longer only about survival. The aliens were starting to believe in him, and belief was more dangerous than any weapon. He wanted to escape, to run, to leave this nightmare behind. But the next challenger was already stepping into the circle. Bigger, stronger, armored in black scales that glowed with heat. Daniel's heart sank. The ritual had only just begun, and he was still trapped in the fire. The rising tension, the arena was louder than a storm. The air shook with the sound of alien voices. Some shouted for Daniel's death, others shouted for his victory. But every single eye was fixed on him, the strange outsider who refused to fall. Daniel stood in the circle of fire, his body weak, his arm bleeding, his chest rising and falling fast. He wanted to collapse, but the weight of thousands of stairs held him upright. He thought, I cannot win this, I should not even be here. But the ritual would not stop until the last fighter was defeated. From the shadows stepped the next challenger. He was different from the others, smaller, quicker, his body covered in black scales that shimmered under the fire. He carried no heavy weapon, only sharp claws that glowed faint red. The crowd shouted his name like thunder. Score! Scorer! Scorer! Daniel swallowed hard. The first two fights had been accidents. Lucky moves that saved him, but now the crowd expected more. The aliens no longer laughed at him. They waited, eager, curious. hungry to see if the human truly was more than chance. The staff struck the ground. Begin! Score leapt forward with impossible speed. Daniel barely saw the blur of movement before claws tore across his shirt, leaving burning lines on his skin. He stumbled back, his broken stone still in hand. But Score was already circling him. The alien moved like a predator hunting prey. Low, fast, and silent. The crowd cheered at every strike. Daniel tried to block, tried to swing the stone. But Score was always faster. Pain filled his arms and chest as cuts multiplied. He felt his knees weaken, the world spinning. I can't do this. He thought, this is the end. But then something changed. Instead of running, Daniel stopped moving. He stood still, letting Score come closer. The alien lunged, certain of victory at the last second. Daniel dropped low and swung his stone with all the strength left in him. The shard hit Score's leg, cracking bone. The alien screamed, stumbling. The crowd erupted, half in rage, half in awe. Daniel did not wait. He grabbed sand again. Throwing it into Score's eyes, the alien roared, blinded. Slashing wildly at the air, Daniel charged forward, shoving the stone into Score's chest. The sharp edge pierced deep, and Score fell into the fire circle, motionless. For a heartbeat, the arena was silent again. The humans of old legends had always been dismissed as weak. But this human had now defeated 3 challengers. The silence broke into chaos. Shouts, cheers, and furious cries. The alien leader's voice thundered over them all. The human stands again! The ritual continues. Daniel bent over, his hands on his knees. Gasping for air, sweat and blood dripped into the sand. He wanted to scream, to beg them to stop, but instead he heard whispers around the arena. Carried by the wind, he is not like the others. He fights with no honor, but he survives. Maybe the stars sent him. The alien females leaned forward. Their glowing eyes locked on Daniel for them. This was not only a test of strength, it was a test of destiny. The winner would not just claim honor, the winner would claim them all. Daniel felt the weight of those stares. It was heavier than any weapon. He whispered, I don't want this. I only wanted water. But deep inside, a seed of something new began to grow. He had survived again and again when he should have died. Luck alone could not explain it anymore. Maybe there was something inside him he never knew. Maybe humans had more strength than even he believed. The guards pulled away Score's body, and another challenger stepped forward. This one was massive, covered in thick armor plates that glowed with heat. He carried a warhammer larger than Daniel's entire body. The crowd screamed in wild excitement. Daniel's legs trembled, his vision blurred, but still he raised his shard of stone, broken, weak, and nearly finished. He looked at the giant warrior and whispered to himself, one more. Just one more chance to live. The drums began again, the fire blazed higher, and the human, still standing, still breathing, faced the next monster. The tension in the air was so thick the crowd could hardly breathe. Somewhere in the silence between the drums, one alien whispered words that spread like fire. This human is not luck. This human is fate. The turning point, the arena smelled of smoke and blood. Daniel stood trembling, his body covered in cuts and dust. He had survived 3 battles that should have ended his life. But now, standing before him was no ordinary challenger. The giant alien stepped into the fire circle. His body was wrapped in plates of black armor that glowed with heat. In his massive hands he carried a warhammer taller than Daniel himself. Every step he took shook the ground. The crowd shouted his name like a storm. Greltok, Greltok, Greltok. Daniel's heart dropped. He whispered to himself, I can't fight that. I can't even lift his weapon. His fingers tightened around the broken stone shard. It looked like a child's toy compared to the warhammer. The alien leader raised his staff and shouted, The 4th clash begins. Greltok roared and charged. The warhammer swung down with the force of thunder. Daniel jumped aside, the weapon smashing into the ground. The impact shook the arena. Throwing Daniel to the sand, dust rose like a wave, covering everything in smoke. Daniel coughed, trying to crawl away. But Greltok was already lifting the hammer again. The crowd screamed, some cheering for death, some holding their breath. The weapon came down once more. Daniel rolled desperately. The hammer missing by inches. The ground cracked where he had just been lying. The human was weak, slow, and bleeding. He knew he could not last long, but something strange happened. Every time Greltok swung his hammer, Daniel's clumsy dodges made the giant stumble. The alien's strength was his power, but it was also his weakness. Each miss drained his energy, each swing slowed him down. Daniel saw it for the first time. He wasn't just running, he was watching, he was learning, and deep inside he thought, maybe I can survive this. Maybe I can outlast him. Growltalk roared again, lifting the hammer high. Daniel looked around desperately, and his eyes caught something near the fire circle, a broken spear thrown aside in an earlier fight. Without thinking, Daniel ran toward it. Sliding across the sand, he grabbed the spear. Holding it like a lifeline, the crowd gasped. The human had a weapon now. It was cracked, bent, almost useless. But in his hands it was hope. Growltalk swung again. Daniel blocked with the spear, the wood splintering under the force. But the block slowed the hammer just enough. Daniel darted forward, stabbing at the giant's leg. The spear cut through armor where the plates were weakest. Growltalk roared in pain, staggering back. The crowd fell silent. For the first time, their champion bled. And it was a human who had done it. Rage burned in Growltalk's eyes. He lifted the hammer with both hands. The flames reflected on his armor. His strength glowing like a furnace, he charged one final time. Daniel braced himself. The hammer fell. The spear broke in half. But the shattered end pierced deep into Growltalk's chest. The giant froze, his roar turned into a choking gasp. He stumbled, falling onto his knees. The arena trembled as he crashed onto the ground. The hammer slipped from his hand, sinking into the sand. Silence. The arena was silent, every alien, every eye. Every breath stopped. Growltalk, the strongest warrior, was dead. And the human, fragile, small, untrained, was still alive. Daniel stood in the center, holding the broken spear, his arms shaking. His face pale, his body weak, but his eyes burning with something new. It was not just fear anymore. It was survival mixed with fire. Something inside him had changed. Something inside the crowd had changed too. Whispers spread through the silence. He killed Growltalk. The human defeated the strongest. He cannot be just luck. The alien females leaned forward, their voices soft but sharp as knives. Look at him, bleeding but unbroken. Perhaps he is the one the stars promised. Daniel looked up at them, confused. He did not understand their words, but he felt their stares like chains pulling him deeper into fate. He whispered, I didn't come here for this. I only wanted to live. But now, after defeating the strongest warrior, the crowd no longer laughed, the crowd no longer mocked. They looked at him with fear for the first time. The aliens began to believe that this human was more than a mistake. He was becoming something greater, something dangerous. The turning point had arrived. And in the shadows beyond the fire, more challengers waited. Their eyes no longer filled only with hate. Now they carried fear. And fear was more powerful than any weapon. The final battle, the arena was silent. The body of Growltalk, the strongest warrior, still lay in the sand, his armor cracked, his chest broken. Daniel stood above him, swaying like a man about to collapse. His clothes torn, his body covered in blood. The firelight painted him in shadows, and the crowd no longer laughed. No longer mocked. They watched him with fear. A human had done the impossible, but the ritual was not finished. There was one left, the warlord, the champion of champions, the ruler of the tribe. From the dark tunnel at the edge of the arena, he stepped forward. He was taller than Growltalk, his body wrapped in black and gold armor, 2 horns curved from his skull, glowing faint red in his hand. He carried a blade so wide it looked like a piece of the night sky. Every step he took sent a shiver through the sand. The crowd whispered only one name, soft and fearful. Morvac. Daniel's knees trembled. His hands held nothing but the broken half of a spear. He whispered, I can't fight this. I can't even stand. But there was no way out. The guards closed the circle, the fire blazed higher, and the alien leader raised his staff. The final battle begins. Morvac charged, his blade swinging like a storm. Daniel jumped aside, the ground splitting where the weapon landed. The force of the strike threw him into the sand, pain shooting through his chest. He coughed, tasting blood. The crowd roared, their voices shaking the air. Morvac lifted the blade again. Daniel rolled, the weapon missing by a breath. The sand burned against his skin. His vision blurred. He tried to stand, but his body felt too heavy. Morvac's shadow fell over him, huge, terrifying. The warlord raised the blade for the killing strike. Daniel's mind screamed, no! Not like this. In that moment, something inside him broke. Not fear, but the wall that had held him back. He grabbed the broken spear and thrust it upward. The blade came down, shattering the weapon in 2, but the broken point stabbed into Morvac's arm. The warlord roared in fury, stumbling back. The crowd gasped. The human still lived again. Daniel had survived the impossible. But Morvac was not like the others. He did not fall easily. His rage was fire, his strength endless. He attacked again and again. Each strike heavier than the last. Daniel dodged, ducked, crawled. His body moving only by willpower. Every second felt like the last. Every breath was stolen from death. Finally, Morvac lifted the blade high with both hands. The firelight reflected on the steel, the shadow of the weapon covering Daniel. The human tried to step back, but his legs failed. He slipped, crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped. The human had fallen. This was the end. Morvac roared, bringing the blade down. But fate twisted in that instant. Daniel's fall saved him. The blade missed his head, smashing into the stone floor. The shock of the strike sent cracks across the arena. The weapon stuck fast in the rock. Morvac pulled, but the blade would not move. Daniel's eyes widened for the first time. The warlord was open. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed a piece of broken stone and struck with everything he had. The shard pierced through the crack in Morvac's armor, sinking deep into his chest. The warlord froze, his eyes glowed, then dimmed. He staggered, blood pouring from his mouth, and with a final roar, Morvac collapsed into the fire circle. Silence. The arena was silent again. The strongest, the ruler, the champion was dead, and the human, the outsider, the mistake, still stood. Daniel dropped the stone and fell to his knees, gasping for air. His body shook. His vision dark. He whispered, "I didn't want this. I only wanted to live." But the aliens did not see weakness. They saw a victor. They saw a human who had defeated every warrior. Even the warlord. The crowd roared in madness, shaking the walls with their voices. Some shouted his name, others shouted curses. But all of them knew one thing: the ritual was over, and the human had won. The alien leader raised his staff. His voice thundered across the arena. "The ritual ends. The human is victor. The right is his, the right of all females." Daniel's head lifted slowly, his eyes wide. The word struck him like a second blade. All females? What does that mean? The crowd chanted louder. The females leaned forward, watching him with glowing eyes, and Daniel realized with horror that his nightmare had only just begun. The shocking reward. The arena was still shaking with the sound of alien voices. Thousands of warriors shouted, some in anger, some in disbelief, and some in awe. Daniel stood in the circle, his chest heaving, his skin cut and bruised, his hands shaking. He had killed the warlord. He had done what no one believed was possible. The alien leader raised his staff high, the flames reflecting in his dark eyes. His voice thundered across the arena. "The ritual is complete. The human is victor. By law of the ancients, all females are his." The crowd erupted into madness. Some aliens screamed in rage, pounding their fists against the stone. Others bowed their heads, accepting the law. But the loudest voices came from the females. They did not scream, they did not rage. Instead, they watched Daniel with glowing eyes, silent, waiting, almost hungry. Daniel's head lifted slowly. His breath caught in his throat. He whispered, "What did he just say?" The words echoed in his mind, twisting like a knife. All females are his. He shook his head, stepping back. No, I didn't fight for this. I only wanted to survive, but the aliens did not understand. To them, the ritual was sacred, the law unbreakable. Victory was not only power, it was ownership. Guards entered the circle, bowing low before him. One of them spoke in a low, trembling voice. "Great victor, the tribe is yours. The females, the wealth, the future. You are father of tribes now." Daniel's stomach turned. He looked at the rows of females watching him, some with curiosity, some with fire in their eyes. They were not afraid of him, they were waiting for him. Waiting to see what he would do. The weight of their stares was heavier than any weapon. His hands shook. He whispered again, "I didn't ask for this. I don't want this." But the leader of the tribe stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "You cannot refuse. The ritual is older than stars. You fought, you killed, you won. The right is yours." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to scream, to deny, to run. But his legs felt rooted to the sand. He thought of the fights, the blood, the bodies that now lay silent because of him. And he realized something darker. If he refused, they might not let him live. The law demanded a victor, and he was the only one left. The females began to chant now, their voices soft but growing louder. "Victor! Victor! Victor!" It was not anger, it was not fear, it was a claim. They were claiming him as much as he had claimed them. Daniel closed his eyes. His mind screamed, "I don't belong here. I'm just a man. I never wanted this, but when he opened his eyes again, he saw something else in the shadows beyond the circle. Aliens from other tribes had gathered. Messengers, spies, witnesses, they had seen it all. They would carry the news to other worlds. The human had won the ritual. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The meaning struck him like a hammer. This was not just about one tribe, this was bigger. Much bigger. News of his victory would spread across the stars. Other tribes would hear, other warlords would come, and the galaxy would no longer see humans as weak. They would see humans as dangerous. The leader lowered his staff and bowed deeply before Daniel. "Rise, father of tribes. The females await you." Daniel stepped back again, shaking his head. "No, please. I'm not your father, I'm not your ruler. I don't want this." But the chants only grew louder. The arena trembled with voices calling his new title. "Father of tribes, father of tribes, father of tribes." The females stood row by row, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Some smiled faintly, others stared with cold hunger, but all of them walked toward the circle. Slowly, step by step, Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to run to escape, but the gates were closed. He was trapped in the circle of fire, trapped by a victory he never wanted. He fell to his knees, his chest heaving. His voice cracked as he whispered, "I only wanted water. I never asked for this." But the galaxy had chosen for him. The ritual was law, and the law had made him father of tribes above. The sky rumbled with thunder, as if even the stars themselves were watching. And in the silence between the chants, Daniel realized the truth. His life as a simple man was over. Something greater, darker, and more dangerous had begun. The galactic echo, the fire in the arena burned low. Smoke curled into the night sky, carrying with it the smell of blood, sweat, and victory. Daniel knelt in the circle of fire, exhausted, broken, his body trembling. The chants of Father of Tribes still echoed from the walls. But inside he felt nothing like a father, nothing like a victor. He lifted his head slowly. The alien females had stopped chanting, but their eyes still glowed in the darkness. They looked at him not with fear, not even with respect, but with expectation. To them he was no longer a stranger. He was their future, their law, their ruler by force of fate. Daniel's lips trembled. "I don't want this," he whispered, but no one heard him. Or perhaps no one cared. Above the arena, alien messengers mounted strange winged beasts. Others lit beacons of fire that shot high into the sky. Signals to distant tribes, signals to other worlds. The news of the ritual's outcome had already begun to spread. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, those signals would travel, carried by traders, warriors, and spies. The message was simple but powerful. A human entered the ritual. A human killed the warlord. A human won. The whispers grew into rumors, the rumors grew into fear, and soon fear would grow into something else, war. In the shadows of the arena, not all were cheering. A group of alien elders gathered in silence. One spoke with a voice like stone, "This cannot be allowed. If one human can do this, others will follow. They must be stopped before their kind spreads." Another elder shook his head. "Or perhaps he is chosen by the stars. Perhaps the galaxy must bow to his kind." Their eyes turned to Daniel, still kneeling in the sand. To them he was no longer a man, he was a spark. A spark that could burn worlds. Daniel slowly stood, his legs weak. The leader of the tribe bowed again, speaking loudly so all could hear. "The law is clear. The human is father of tribes. His name will be written in our stars." The crowd cheered once more, but this time it was not only his tribe. Beyond the arena walls, voices rose from other clans, from spies and outsiders who had come to watch. Each one carried the story already. Each one would tell it differently, but in every version, one truth would remain. The human won. Daniel's chest felt heavy. He wanted to shout, to deny it all, but his voice was drowned by the roar of thousands. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, "I never asked for this. I never wanted this, but now it has begun." Above, the stars seemed brighter, as if they too had heard the news. And in the distance, far beyond the desert planet, ships began to stir. Warriors, rulers, entire civilizations would soon hear the tale. Some would see it as a threat, some would see it as a challenge, and some would see it as destiny. The galaxy had lived for centuries without fear of humans, but now everything had changed. One man's survival had rewritten the balance of power, and the aliens who had once laughed at humanity now whispered a new word when they spoke of him. A word that would echo in the stars. Victor. Daniel looked up at the sky, his hands trembling. The firelight painted his face in shadow. He knew the truth now. This victory was not an ending, it was a beginning. And the galaxy itself would never be the same. The first ripples, the night after the ritual, was not quiet. The arena had gone dark. The fires burned low. But the air still carried the weight of thousands of voices. Daniel sat alone inside a stone chamber, guarded by alien warriors who bowed every time they saw him. To them, he was father of tribes now. To Daniel, he was nothing more than a broken man who only wanted water. He pressed his back against the cold wall. His arms still bled from deep cuts, his body ached with every breath. His mind spun with the memory of the warlord's fall. He whispered to himself, "It can't be real. I can't be their leader. I can't be their father." But outside, the world was already changing. Messengers had flown into the desert night. Signals were sent across the skies, and in distant cities, alien rulers already sat in dark halls, whispering his name on the volcanic world of Koran. A war council gathered. One elder slammed his fist on the table. A human cannot be allowed to lead tribes. If one wins, more will come. They must be destroyed before they rise. Another, older and wiser, shook his head. Or perhaps the human is chosen. If we strike too soon, the stars themselves may curse us. On a water world deep in the outer rim, alien priests chanted in temples. They declared the human's victory a sign from the heavens. The child of earth has risen. The stars have sent him. He will change the fate of all tribes. And far above, in the cold void of space, ships stirred. Some prepared for war. Some prepared for pilgrimage. All prepared to find the human who had turned their galaxy upside down. Back in the chamber, Daniel sat in silence. The guards knelt before him, bringing food and water. But he pushed it away. He had no hunger, no thirst, only fear. Fear of what his victory had unleashed. The door opened. A group of alien females entered, their eyes glowing softly in the dark. They bowed their heads, speaking as one, "Father of tribes, we come to serve." Daniel stood quickly, his heart pounding. "No, I am not your father. I don't want this." But they looked at him with calm patience. One stepped forward, whispering, "You cannot refuse the law. You are ours now and we are yours." His stomach twisted. He stepped back, pressing against the wall. The weight of their words was heavier than any battle. He whispered again, "I never asked for this." Yet outside, the galaxy was not waiting for his answer. The first ripples of his victory were already spreading. On warships, generals plotted invasions. In temples, prophets sang his name. In markets, traders told exaggerated stories of the human victor, who killed 10 warriors with his bare hands. Each retelling made him larger, stronger, more dangerous than he truly was, and so the legend grew, and legends were more powerful than truth. At dawn, Daniel was led back to the arena. The tribe gathered again, not to fight, but to honor him. The alien leader raised his staff, declaring, "From this day the human is father of tribes. His name will spread to the stars." The crowd cheered. The females bowed. The warriors pounded their weapons into the ground. But among them not all were loyal. In the shadows, eyes burned with hatred. Whispers carried plans of betrayal. Not everyone wanted a human to rule. Daniel felt it. He saw the cold stares, the clenched fists. He knew this was not over. It was only the beginning. He looked up at the alien sky. Ships already moved in the distance, carrying news faster than light. The galaxy was watching, waiting, deciding. Some would come to worship him. Others would come to kill him, and Daniel, the man who only wanted water, now stood at the center of a storm that would change everything. The first ripples had begun, and soon a wave would crash across the stars.